At the farthest edge of the Earth, where the maps of mankind dissolve into endless white, lies a continent that seems almost alien to our world, Antarctica. A colossal landmass larger than all of Europe, yet buried beneath kilometers of ice. A place with no birth, no ruler, and no one who truly knows what sleeps beneath that frozen veil. The world has fought over every inch of land, every drop of oil, every breath of the ocean, but there is one place, the only place that all of humanity has agreed to leave untouched. Why? What could make the most powerful forces on Earth choose silence? Tonight, we journey into the white void, where science, faith, and power intertwine beneath the ice. A place where ancient maps whisper of a land erased from history, where secrets are locked in frozen time, and where, perhaps, lies the missing chapter of human civilization. At the farthest reaches of the Earth, where geographical certainty dissolves into an expanse of white, lies a continent that appears almost alien to our world. Antarctica, a landmass exceeding the size of Europe, remains largely concealed beneath kilometers of ice, harboring enigmas humanity has yet to fully comprehend. For centuries, early navigators charting the globe deliberately left a conspicuous void in the far south, as if this land awaited discovery, or was purposefully kept from view. Antarctica's singular nature stems not merely from its extreme climate, but from its profound silence. No sovereign nation asserts outright ownership. No indigenous populations have ever resided there. Even in contemporary times, information regarding this continent often appears meticulously curated and controlled. Eminent scientists, influential politicians, and even powerful religious figures have journeyed to this frozen expanse. Yet, a comprehensive account of their observations is seldom shared. Intriguingly, a global treaty signed in 1959 designated Antarctica as an inviolable zone, a territory where even adversarial nations, amidst periods of heightened international tension, chose to maintain an unprecedented accord of silence. This raises a fundamental question. What compelling factors prompted humanity, a species notorious for disputing every parcel of land and every natural resource, to collectively agree upon excluding Antarctica from the arena of conquest? What profundities rest dormant beneath that frigid white blanket, remaining beyond our permissible reach? And in a world characterized by incessant conflict and ambition, why does this particular location persist as untouchable? Beyond its geological composition, each layer of ice represents a fragment of a larger, concealed narrative of power and truth that humanity has perhaps not yet been prepared to confront. Before sailing vessels ever navigated the icy southern seas, Antarctica existed predominantly within the realm of human conjecture. For centuries, an enduring belief held that a substantial southern landmass was essential to counterbalance the continents in the northern hemisphere. This was not merely a geographical notion. It reflected an ancient worldview wherein Earth was perceived as symmetrically balanced, like scales held in equilibrium by nature itself. This theoretical land was given the enigmatic name Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. The earliest conceptualizations of this idea can be traced to the ancient Greeks. The philosopher Pythagoras, in describing Earth as a sphere, proposed a counterweight in the south to explain its stability. Later, the Roman scholar Claudius Ptolemy incorporated it into his maps as a vast expanse, stretching from the southern tip of Africa all the way to Asia. On these maps, Terra Australis was depicted not because it had been seen, but because its existence was considered a philosophical necessity. This belief was not exclusive to the Western world. Ancient Chinese records also allude to Nanzhou, a distant southern land possessing an atypical climate and soil. While more legend than verified fact, this concept underscored a universal human preoccupation that at the planet's furthest edge, an unseen, hidden continent must surely reside. During medieval Europe, Mappa Mundi often boldly shaded in this southern land. It was entwined with both burgeoning scientific thought and enduring myth. Some maps even adorned it with illustrations of fantastical creatures, as if cartographers were populating the unknown with imaginative conjectures of a wild land awaiting discovery. By the 15th and 16th centuries, the age of grand exploration transformed Terra Australis into an ardent obsession. Explorers believed its discovery would not only revolutionize cartography but also unveil untold riches. The Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and English all harbored aspirations of reaching this southern frontier. What they primarily encountered, however, were treacherous frozen seas and scattered islands. Tierra del Fuego, New Zealand, Tasmania fragments many eagerly, yet erroneously, associated with the myth of Terra Australis. Even before human footfalls truly touched the Antarctic continent, its mystique permeated folklore. Polynesian mariners, renowned for their mastery of open ocean navigation, recounted tales of a cold southern land where icy winds prevailed and seas were perpetually shrouded in mist. In South America, the Inca spoke of white men from the south, enigmatic travelers from a distant, frozen domain. These accounts lacked empirical verification, yet their persistent recurrence prompted scholars to ponder: could collective memory have preserved a kernel of truth from an epoch when Earth's geographical configuration was vastly different? As European maps grew in detail, Terra Australis did not vanish. On the contrary, it was often rendered even larger, spanning the globe from Africa to South America, envisioned as the very foundation of the planet. Only as expeditions pressed closer to the Antarctic Circle did explorers begin to realize its exaggerated scale, much of it pure invention. Yet, even into the 18th century, Terra Australis continued to haunt sailors, a phantom luring them into perilous voyages in pursuit of what genuinely lay at the world's end. Ultimately, Terra Australis Incognita was more than a mere geographical error. It was a profound testament to humanity's consistent perception of the world through the lens of balance, believing in what must exist, even in the absence of tangible proof. This powerful illusion ignited daring journeys, many of which tragically claimed lives, but eventually unveiled the reality of a continent locked away beneath eternal ice. As the shroud of legend surrounding Terra Australis Incognita gradually dissipated, the world entered an era of audacious voyages. The 18th and 19th centuries marked a pivotal shift as European expeditions, driven by nationalistic pride and individual ambition, ventured into the treacherous frozen seas encircling the South Pole. What had once been an abstract concept on maps now transformed into a competitive arena for explorers, each striving to be the first to set foot on an untouched continent. The British, with their formidable naval heritage, were among the vanguard. In the 18th century, Captain James Cook spearheaded expeditions further south than any predecessor, traversing the Antarctic Circle and meticulously documenting endless expanses of ice stretching to the horizon. While he never directly landed on the continent, Cook conclusively demonstrated a critical fact. The far south harbored more than just ocean. It encompassed a colossal landmass shrouded beneath ice. In his journals, he characterized the region as inhospitable and commercially valueless. Ironically, this very dismissiveness fueled the ambitions of subsequent generations determined to conquer it. By the 19th and early 20th centuries, the earnest race for the South Pole commenced. For European powers, planting a national flag at this extreme point became a potent symbol of national prowess. Three names emerged prominently: Roald Amundsen of Norway, Robert Falcon Scott of Britain, and Ernest Shackleton, also British, though remembered more for his extraordinary failures than for outright triumphs. Amundsen, renowned for his methodical and precise approach, prepared with unparalleled diligence. He meticulously studied Inuit survival techniques, mastered the use of dog sleds, and assembled a lean, highly efficient team. Scott, conversely, epitomized aristocratic pride and British imperial ambition. His expedition opted for Manchurian ponies and motor sledges, choices ill-suited to the harsh Antarctic conditions, yet reflective of his desire to showcase modern technology. The race unfolded with a sense of predetermined tragedy. Amundsen, practical and singularly focused, successfully reached the South Pole in December 1911, proudly planting the Norwegian flag at the planet's southernmost point. Weeks later, Scott's team arrived, only to discover their defeat. On their arduous return journey, beleaguered by exhaustion and ensnared in relentless blizzards, Scott and his men perished one by one, leaving behind haunting journal entries filled with final messages to their families and nation. His story transcended mere failure, evolving into a poignant narrative of sacrifice, remembered as a testament to humanity's struggle against the Earth's most unforgiving frontier. Then there was Shackleton. Though he never reached the pole, his name is indelibly etched in legend for a different triumph: survival. In 1914, his vessel, the Endurance, became irrevocably trapped and subsequently crushed by the ice, forcing his crew to endure months drifting on ice floes. Ultimately, Shackleton and a small contingent of men navigated hundreds of miles across the freezing seas to secure rescue, and against all odds, saved his entire team. His narrative stands as an enduring testament to human willpower and unparalleled leadership. Through immense effort, sacrifice, and even their lives, these individuals transformed Antarctica from a blank space on maps into an integral chapter of human history. Yet, the brutal conditions they encountered revealed a paradox. Antarctica became both a symbol of human conquest and unequivocal proof of the fundamental limits we can never truly transcend. The expeditions of the early 20th century yielded more than just journals and records. They inaugurated a new era for scientific inquiry. As drills penetrated deep into the ice and rare rocks and sediments were extracted from beneath the frozen continent and transported to laboratories, a startling truth began to emerge. Antarctica was not perpetually the barren wasteland we recognize today. Millions of years ago, it was a verdant, lush land, adorned with forests, traversed by rivers, and even roamed by colossal dinosaurs. The concept of a warm Antarctica may seem incongruous, yet the geological evidence is indisputable. Substantial coal seams buried beneath the ice are the petrified remnants of ancient forests. Scientists have unearthed fossilized wood, colossal ferns, and trees that once ascended dozens of meters skyward. Some samples still exhibit visible growth rings, unequivocally demonstrating that this land once experienced distinct seasons, extended periods of sunlight, and temperatures sufficiently temperate to sustain a flourishing ecosystem. Furthermore, not only plants, but also dinosaur fossils have been discovered here. Enormous herbivores traversing the forests and predators uniquely adapted to months of darkness. These profound discoveries compelled the scientific community to ponder a larger question. How did a land, once teeming with life, undergo such a dramatic transformation into a world of perpetual ice? Climate models suggest that as tectonic plates shifted, Antarctica gradually migrated southward. The subsequent formation of the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a vast, swirling belt of frigid water, effectively isolated it from the warmer equatorial currents. Slowly, the climate progressively cooled, and ice began its inexorable grip. Intriguingly, this process was not always linear. Some fossil records indicate periods of warmth even after Antarctica had settled at the South Pole, providing evidence that Earth's climate once underwent abrupt shifts in ways we still struggle to fully comprehend. Were these merely natural cycles, or do they signify forces we do not yet entirely understand? Today, the ice sheet, which is kilometers thick, conceals innumerable secrets beneath its immense mass. Radar scans indicate the potential presence of entire fossilized forests, preserved as if within a time capsule, sealed in profound silence. Should these ever be uncovered, they could unveil not only Antarctica's biological past, but also how this planet once confronted and adapted to extreme climate change. Moreover, the ice does not exclusively preserve traces of life. It acts as an archive for the atmosphere itself. Within ice cores, extending tens of meters, scientists discover minute air bubbles entrapped for hundreds of thousands of years. By meticulously studying these, a comprehensive timeline of Earth's climate has been constructed. When CO2 levels ascended, the planet warmed, ice melted, and sea levels rose. Conversely, when CO2 levels declined, the ice sheets advanced once more. This cycle repeats, akin to the slow, deliberate breathing of the Earth, and Antarctica holds a crucial key to deciphering that breath. Within the ice lie not only ancient air, but also dust from distant deserts, pollen from long-vanished plants, and even ash from violent volcanic eruptions. When these elements are pieced together, the narrative revealed is not exclusively Antarctica's. It is the comprehensive history of the entire globe. Yet, a paradox persists. The ice functions both as our most complete archive and as the formidable barrier preventing us from fully deciphering it. Our current understanding represents merely the surface. Millions of years of history remain veiled in obscurity. Perhaps this is why Antarctica evokes the sensation of a locked library, containing invaluable records of climate and environment. However, to access these, one must turn the pages with immense care and patience. There can be no haste, no force. In that profound silence, Antarctica seems to whisper, "This planet remembers," and its memory is revealed only to those humble enough to truly listen. While contemporary science asserts that Antarctica has been locked beneath ice for millions of years, a singular, perplexing artifact presents a formidable challenge to this timeline. The Piri Reis map, meticulously drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis. This map is remarkable not only for its astonishing detail, far surpassing cartographic capabilities of its era, but for what it appears to depict a coastline of Antarctica entirely free of ice. Piri Reis was an exceptional individual, a highly skilled navigator, an erudite scholar, and a meticulous collector of knowledge from diverse sources. In the annotations accompanying his map, he stated that it was compiled from approximately 20 older charts, including Greek, Arabic, and even some purportedly dating back to the time of Columbus. What profoundly astonished researchers was the southern portion of his map, where the coastline aligns with uncanny precision with the geographical shape of Antarctica as we understand it today, not buried in ice, but exposed as open land. Comparisons between the Piri Reis map and modern geological surveys have left many profoundly stunned. Several features depicted on the map correspond almost exactly with Antarctica's actual coastline, which was only fully revealed in the 20th century by ice-penetrating radar. Beneath thousands of meters of ice, the underlying landmass configuration is astonishingly close to what Piri Reis illustrated over 500 years ago. This naturally gives rise to a crucial question. How could a 16th century admiral map a land that humanity would not officially sight until the 19th century, let alone map its subglacial contours? Several theories have been posited. Some argue that Piri Reis simply misassembled parts of South America, and that the depicted land is not, in fact, Antarctica. However, this explanation falters when specific coastal features align almost perfectly with modern data. Another theory suggests that his map may have been copied from far older sources, perhaps remnants of a civilization that predated Antarctica's sealing by ice. If accurate, this would imply that humanity once possessed seafaring and geographic knowledge far exceeding what historical records generally acknowledge. Mainstream scholars generally remain cautious, suggesting that Antarctica may have experienced periods with significantly less ice tens of thousands of years in the past, and that the Piri Reis map could reflect a vague, inherited memory of those times. Yet, the striking precision of the match continues to fuel curiosity. If it were merely coincidence, why does it align so closely, even under the rigorous scrutiny of modern radar technology? Further deepening the enigma is the fact that the Piri Reis map is not an isolated case. Other maps from the 16th and 17th centuries also depict a southern continent, sometimes appended to South America, sometimes presented as a distinct landmass. It appears that within humanity's collective geographic memory, a vestige of this southern land persisted even before its empirical confirmation. Could these maps represent fragments of a lost body of knowledge, transmitted across generations until they eventually reached the hands of Piri Reis? For centuries, the map has remained at the epicenter of debate. To cautious academics, it is an uncomfortable anomaly, a puzzle piece that resists integration into established historical narratives. To alternative researchers, it stands as compelling evidence of lost civilizations, advanced societies whose knowledge vanished but left indelible traces. To the wider public, it symbolizes a timeless question: do we truly possess the complete narrative of our planet's past? The Piri Reis map functions less as a mere relic and more as a doorway, opening onto boundless speculation, from scientific hypotheses to ancient myths. In doing so, it casts Antarctica in an entirely new light, not solely as a frozen wilderness, but as a land potentially holding the memory of an entire civilization, buried beneath the ice. When one observes Antarctica today, a colossal block of ice isolated within the frigid ocean, it is challenging to conceive that this continent was once intricately connected to numerous other landmasses. However, geological maps and the established theory of plate tectonics reveal an astonishing truth. Antarctica was not always solitary. It constituted an integral part of the supercontinent Gondwana, a colossal landmass that also encompassed South America, Africa, India, Australia, and Madagascar. Envision the Earth approximately 180 million years ago. The global configuration was utterly dissimilar to its present state. Instead of disparate continents, immense land masses were fused together, Gondwana in the south and Laurasia in the north. Antarctica was not yet anchored at the South Pole. It was positioned closer to the equator, conjoined with lush, verdant lands. This interconnectivity facilitated the unimpeded migration of life across regions, fostering a continuous ecosystem that stretched from Africa to the very southern extremity of the world. The indelible fingerprints of Gondwana persist deep within Antarctica. The Transantarctic Mountains, extending for thousands of kilometers, share identical geological structures, with mountain ranges found in South Africa and India. Coal beds, iron deposits, and ancient igneous rocks discovered in Antarctica correspond to similar resources found in Australia and Brazil. Geologists refer to these congruous edges as compelling evidence that the continents once fitted together as a singular entity. As the tectonic plates commenced their inexorable shift, Gondwana began to fracture in discrete stages. Approximately 120 million years ago, India detached and accelerated northward, eventually colliding with Eurasia to form the majestic Himalayas. Around 100 million years ago, South America and Africa separated, leaving behind coastlines that still interlock like fragments of a shattered vase. Antarctica gradually drifted toward the South Pole, achieving complete isolation approximately 34 million years ago, with the formation of the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a circumpolar ring of cold water that entirely severed its connection. From that point onward, the continent became entombed in an eternal ice age. One of the most potent pieces of evidence substantiating the Gondwana connection is the Glossopteris fossil, a genus of giant fern that once thrived in dense forests across the supercontinent. Fossilized traces of Glossopteris have been identified in India, South Africa, Australia, and Antarctica. These discoveries played a crucial role in enabling 19th century scientists to finally embrace the once radical theory of continental drift. The imagery of a single plant species spanning continents thousands of miles apart remains a powerful affirmation of Earth's unified beginning. Gondwana represents more than a mere geological construct. It serves as a profound reminder that Earth's history is an epic saga of continuous movement. No continent is permanently fixed. All drift, collide, and fragment like colossal icebergs navigating in boundless sea. Antarctica, in its present form, constitutes but one chapter of that story, a chapter defined by separation, cold, and isolation. Yet, prior to this, it was intimately bound to lands where human populations now thrive. Recent investigations into Antarctica's bedrock further enrich this understanding. Mountain ranges concealed beneath the ice, hidden mineral veins, and vast fault lines reveal that Antarctica continues to play a strategic role in Earth's overarching geological narrative. The mineral resources that formed within Gondwana did not vanish. They remain sequestered beneath the ice, secrets patiently awaiting discovery in silence. Viewed through the lens of Gondwana, Antarctica's contemporary isolation represents only a fleeting moment in a much more extended history. It was once an integral part of a familiar world, where life flourished and migrated, before being torn asunder by the planet's dynamic shifting plates. This ancient memory imbues Antarctica with a dual sense of both proximity and profound distance. It once belonged to our shared past, yet now lies sealed away a frozen, hidden land beyond our present grasp. If Gondwana narrates the distant past of Antarctica, then contemporary discoveries unveil a new chapter. Beneath kilometers of ice, Antarctica conceals a subterranean world teeming with life, a realm sequestered for millions of years, where rivers continue to flow, vast lakes silently persist, and ancient microbes endure in conditions previously deemed impossible. The most renowned of these discoveries is Lake Vostok. Buried under more than 4 kilometers of ice, Lake Vostok is 3 times the size of North America's Lake Ontario and ranks among Earth's largest freshwater lakes. Its extraordinary nature derives from its complete isolation from the atmosphere for at least 15 million years. This prolonged sequestration implies that any life within it has evolved independently, entirely cut off from the rest of the planet. When Russian scientists successfully drilled down and retrieved the initial water samples, they detected traces of bacteria previously unknown to science. These microscopic organisms appear uniquely adapted to survive in a dark, high-pressure, methane-rich environment, a habitat eerily reminiscent of locations imagined far beyond Earth. However, Lake Vostok is not unique. Ice-penetrating radar and satellite technology have unveiled hundreds of other subglacial lakes, all interconnected by an extensive network of rivers flowing beneath the ice. Some of these rivers extend for hundreds of kilometers, transporting water, minerals, and even microorganisms through this frozen underworld. This remarkable discovery fundamentally reshapes our perception of Antarctica. Far from being an inert block of ice, it is a dynamic, complex, and hidden system, silently active beneath its frozen surface. This raises profound questions. If life can survive in absolute darkness, without sunlight, and without contact with the external world for millions of years. What then prevents life from existing in extreme environments elsewhere, perhaps beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus? In this sense, Antarctica functions as a natural laboratory, offering humanity a tantalizing glimpse into the potential for life beyond Earth. Yet, what lies beneath the ice inspires more than scientific inquiry. It fuels speculation. For if entire ecosystems have been sealed away for such extensive periods, who can state with absolute certainty that only microbes exist there? Some have proposed the possibility of more complex life forms, or even traces of lost civilizations entombed beneath the ice. While mainstream science generally dismisses these conjectures, they persist in the public imagination, particularly when enigmatic, unexplained radar readings hint at unusual structures hidden below. One fact remains undeniable. These sealed environments are Earth's veritable memory vaults. They preserve climate, biology, and geology from millions of years ago in an untouched and pristine state, a condition almost unparalleled elsewhere. However, this very purity has also transformed Antarctica into a place of controversy. Certain areas are officially declared off-limits, not due to a lack of technological capability, but because they must remain absolutely pristine. From a scientific perspective, this seems rational, yet it also leaves ample room for suspicion, inadvertently fueling conspiracy theories about what might genuinely be concealed there. Deep within its ice, Antarctica evokes the feeling of a locked diary, permitting us to read only a few lines at a time. The less information we are provided, the more our imagination endeavors to fill the gaps. This is why Antarctica belongs not solely to science, but equally to myth. For while scientists diligently search for clues of ancient climates, others perceive within it the lingering shadow of Atlantis, fallen deities, or even a gateway leading into a hidden world. When considering the hidden lakes and ancient microbes beneath Antarctica's ice, our imagination naturally extends further. If so much remains concealed under the frozen surface, could Antarctica itself be the lost homeland of the greatest civilization in legend, Atlantis? Throughout the 20th century, one of the most provocative theories concerning Antarctica originated from the geographer Charles Hapgood. Instead of merely examining old maps for answers, Hapgood proposed a far bolder hypothesis: that Earth's crust may have once undergone a rapid shift, relocating an entire continent from a temperate zone to the frozen South Pole. In this violent displacement, a flourishing civilization, identified as Atlantis, was purportedly buried beneath eternal ice. He termed this concept Earth crust displacement. Unlike Alfred Wegener's gradual theory of continental drift, Hapgood posited that Earth's relatively thin outer shell could slide abruptly over the softer mantle below, traversing thousands of kilometers in what would be a geologically brief period. If such a shift occurred, regions with mild climates could suddenly be thrust into polar conditions, a cataclysmic upheaval dramatic enough to obliterate an entire civilization. In his seminal 1966 work, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, Hapgood argued that Atlantis was not a mythical land submerged by the ocean, as Plato described, but rather Antarctica itself, prior to its glaciation. He believed that approximately 12,000 years ago, coinciding with an Earth crust shift, the continent transitioned from a temperate latitude to the South Pole. Any civilization that had thrived there would have been annihilated by the sudden onset of freezing, with fragments of its memory surviving in global myths, preserved under the name Atlantis. The theory ignited intense debate, yet it also captivated many. Some scholars noted that Hapgood's hypothesis could potentially account for the widespread cultural legends of a lost land in the far south. It also seemed to align with scientific evidence suggesting that portions of Antarctica experienced unusually warm climates in the relatively recent past. Even in the absence of direct archaeological proof, the proposed timing at the conclusion of the last ice age, when global sea levels rose dramatically, lent further credence to his theory. Perhaps most surprisingly, Hapgood was not entirely isolated in his thinking. Albert Einstein, in a foreword to one of Hapgood's works, acknowledged that the theory warranted serious consideration, as it presented a novel perspective on Earth's geological transformations. Einstein did not unequivocally endorse Hapgood's conclusions, but his cautious support was sufficient to draw significant attention from the broader scientific community. Of course, most contemporary geologists dismiss the Earth crust displacement idea, emphasizing that it directly conflicts with the extensively established evidence of plate tectonic. Nevertheless, the Atlantis-Antarctica theory has endured, not only among alternative researchers but also within popular culture. It paints a haunting picture of an advanced civilization virtually erased overnight, leaving behind only faint echoes in humanity's collective memory. The true significance of Hapgood's theory may not reside in its factual accuracy, but in the profound question it compels us to confront. Could we be missing an entire chapter of human history? If monumental geological shifts were possible in the past, how many civilizations might have been obliterated, surviving solely as legend? Thus, Antarctica becomes a potent symbol of forgetting a continent encased in ice, akin to a colossal sarcophagus holding the remnants of a lost world. Whether Hapgood's hypothesis was ultimately mistaken or not, his theory perpetually keeps alive an eternal question. Beneath those kilometers of ice, could the myth of Atlantis simply be awaiting its eventual unearthing? If Hapgood's Atlantis and Antarctica theory presented one bold explanation, then humanity's diverse myths resonate like echoes from a far older memory, whispers of a shared recollection of a southern land. What is particularly striking is the prevalence of stories, from South America to Polynesia, and extending to the Mediterranean, that speak of a distant place, sometimes radiant, sometimes frozen, that vanished beyond human reach. Is this merely coincidence, or are these fragments of memory pertaining to a continent long sealed away? The Inca of the Andes recounted tales of white men from the south, enigmatic figures who emerged from a frozen land, occasionally described as purveyors of knowledge. They were said to have imparted skills in agriculture and architecture, only to disappear after some monumental catastrophe. In remote Patagonia, the Tehuelca people transmitted down through generations narratives of pale-skinned giants, twice the stature of ordinary humans, dwelling at the frigid extremities of the earth. When European explorers arrived in the 16th century, they too documented stories of these Patagonian giants. Some sailors even claimed to have observed towering figures on the wild coasts, as if legend and reality had momentarily converged. What renders this particularly curious is that many of these stories predated European arrival in South America, undermining the notion that they were mere exaggerations of encounters with taller outsiders. Perhaps the giants of the ice were metaphorical, personifications of the glaciers and the relentless frigid winds sweeping in from the south. However, it is also plausible they represent blurred memories of ancient encounters with long-vanished groups of people, leaving no trace save for myth. Across the Pacific, the master navigators of Polynesia recounted stories of Hawaii, a sacred land in the far south, believed to be the ancestral origin of their people. To them, Hawaii was not only the destination where souls returned after death, but also a shared primordial homeland, a land that once existed but was subsequently lost. While many scholars interpret Hawaii as a cultural metaphor, when juxtaposed with the Inca and Patagonian narratives, the similarities suggest a deeper collective memory. Even within the Greek world, where Plato penned his account of Atlantis, geographers such as Ptolemy and Strabo speculated about a vast southern continent, Terra Australis, deemed necessary to maintain Earth's equilibrium. This concept persisted into medieval maps, illustrating how both East and West were haunted by the notion of a land no one had ever truly seen. In numerous cultures, figures originating from the South, whether giants or beings from another realm, were often revered, not as adversaries but as semi-divine entities, inspiring both awe and apprehension. Frequently remembered as bringers of knowledge, this pattern mirrors the Atlantis myth itself, an advanced civilization destroyed, yet leaving faint traces behind. In human culture, giants frequently symbolize memories of a bygone era when more formidable forces traversed the earth: the Titans of Greece, the Nephilim of the Bible, the colossal figures in Polynesian myth. All share a common characteristic. They belong to an earlier world, one superseded to make way for humanity. When South American, Polynesian, and Mediterranean legends are considered together, Antarctica begins to emerge as the convergent stage for these collective memories. The true significance of these myths may not lie in their literal accuracy, but in their striking resonance. From South America to Oceania, from the Mediterranean to medieval Europe, vastly disparate cultures appear to share a memory of a southern land, distant, haunting, and lost. This imaginative current has transformed Antarctica from a lifeless block of ice into a living symbol of apprehension, reverence, and humanity's eternal yearning to explore. It does not furnish definitive answers, but opens a door to the ultimate question. Beneath the ice, could echoes of a lost age still persist? Following the legends of South American giants, the narrative shifts to the contemporary era. In today's age of satellites and the internet, Antarctica is no longer merely a distant land of imagination. It has become an open canvas, visible to the entire world. Yet, paradoxically, the proliferation of images appears to deepen the mysteries. Amidst millions of satellite photographs, unusual shapes emerge, sparking the inquiry. Is Antarctica concealing artificial structures, or are we simply being deceived by the interplay of light, shadows, and ice? One of the most prominent examples is the so-called Antarctic pyramid. Circulating satellite photos depict a structure with distinct edges, triangular faces, and a pointed apex rising above the interminable white landscape. From a distance, it bears an uncanny resemblance to a massive pyramid, as if constructed by human hands or an ancient, forgotten civilization. Speculation rapidly proliferated. Some attributed it to Atlantis, others to extraterrestrial architects, while still others claimed it was a clandestine government base hidden in plain sight. Mainstream scientists offered a more straightforward explanation. It was merely a nunatak, a mountain peak protruding through the ice, sculpted into a pyramid-like form by millions of years of erosion. To them, the pyramid image was nothing more than pareidolia, the human brain's propensity to perceive familiar patterns in random stimuli, analogous to discerning faces in clouds. However, rational explanation alone proved insufficient to curb the fascination. The photos circulated widely across social media, edited, zoomed, and captioned until they solidified into a digital legend. Videos about the Antarctic pyramid garnered millions of views, posing questions such as, why are governments silent? And why is no one permitted to visit that site? Ironically, the very absence of official commentary merely amplified the mystery. The pyramid was not the sole anomaly. Other satellite images revealed dark streaks resembling tunnels, rectangular shadows etched into the ice, or unusual openings leading underground. Some of these were later attributed to natural shadows or image processing glitches. Nevertheless, for those who believe Antarctica harbors profound secrets, these images became purported evidence of subterranean bases and unknown structures concealed beneath the ice. The compelling nature of these images does not reside in their factual accuracy, but in their capacity to ignite curiosity. Antarctica is already largely inaccessible to the general public. Therefore, any anomaly becomes potent fuel for imagination. A dark patch transforms into a colossal entrance. A sharp peak morphs into an ancient pyramid. Consequently, the larger question endures. Are we merely deluding ourselves with distorted visuals, or is something genuinely being concealed beneath the ice? Science provides plausible answers, but it cannot extinguish the persistent belief that Antarctica holds more than we currently know. It is precisely within this gap between what science explains and what people desire to believe that modern legends find their enduring vitality. From icy pyramids carved by the forces of stone and snow, the human imagination extends even further. If those enigmatic images genuinely hint at something hidden, could Antarctica itself serve as a gateway to another world? Some theories propose that deep beneath the continent lie entrances leading to a subterranean realm, a place known by various names in legend, from Hollow Earth to Agartha. The Hollow Earth theory first emerged in the 17th century, when a few European thinkers speculated that Earth might contain multiple inner shells with vast, open spaces inside. Over time, this idea diverged from scientific discourse and became entrenched in modern mythology. What is particularly fascinating is the frequent appearance of Antarctica in these narratives, as if this remote land were chosen as the ideal veil to obscure a greater truth. One of the most widely recounted stories associated with this belief concerns Agartha, a mystical underground world purportedly home to advanced beings or entire civilizations existing parallel to humanity, but hidden from the surface. Many Eastern traditions, from Hinduism to Tibetan Buddhism, describe subterranean realms or concealed cities where profound wisdom, enlightenment, and even immortality could be attained. When these ancient myths converged with the icy imagery of Antarctica, they fueled the notion that Agartha might be accessible through portals at the North and South Poles. This belief gained further traction with the stories surrounding Admiral Richard Byrd, the acclaimed American explorer, who famously overflew both poles in the 20th century. According to unofficial documents purported to be his secret diary, Byrd claimed to have witnessed a lush, green land beyond the Antarctic ice, bathed in an anomalous sunlight and inhabited by mysterious creatures. While most historians dismiss these documents as fabrications, they have been sufficient to firmly embed the Hollow Earth concept within Antarctica's mythology. Between established fact and compelling fiction, one aspect remains undeniable. Antarctica provides the quintessential stage for underground world legends to thrive. Kilometers thick ice, unexplored ice caves, restricted flight zones, and areas off-limits to exploration all contribute to the pervasive sense that something significant is being concealed. For many adherents, the more vociferously mainstream science denies these possibilities, the stronger their conviction grows. Hollow Earth and Agartha may indeed be myths, but they echo a deeper sentiment: humanity's inherent reluctance to accept that every mystery of our planet has already been definitively resolved. We seem to require the concept of an unexplored land, a hidden doorway to another world, to sustain our intrinsic curiosity. In its profound silence, Antarctica has become the perfect embodiment of that belief. From this juncture, Antarctica's narrative transitions into a new era. No longer solely a subject of myth or speculation, it became a focal point of 20th century political upheaval. As empires vied for territory and power, Antarctica ceased to be a forgotten land. It transformed into a pawn on the geopolitical chessboard, a place where secrets were not only cloaked in legend, but also guarded by military might and astute diplomacy. This shift began with a name that continues to carry a chilling resonance: Nazi Germany. In 1938, Hitler's regime dispatched an expedition to Antarctica, organized by the German Navy, and conducted aboard the ship times Schwabenland ***. The official mandate was to explore and conduct aerial surveys to expand economic influence, specifically to locate new whaling grounds, a critical source of oil at the time. However, beneath this overt objective, historical documents and persistent rumors suggest the Nazis harbored a more ambitious agenda: to claim a portion of Antarctica and establish a clandestine military base. The region they explored was named New Schwabenland, New Swabia, situated in Queen Maud Land. Over several months, the expedition conducted extensive aerial photography across the ice, dropped flags to assert territorial claims, and created detailed maps. This action generated considerable unease among other nations, aligning perfectly with Nazi Germany's aggressive expansionist policies already unfolding in Europe. Following the war, the paucity of concrete information regarding this expedition created a vacuum, which was swiftly filled with extravagant theories. Many came to believe the Nazis did not merely scout for whale-rich waters, but actively constructed secret underground bases beneath the Antarctic ice. Some narratives asserted they built massive bunkers, experimented with advanced weaponry, and even tested flying disc technology concepts, seemingly decades ahead of their time. One of the most pervasive theories posits that the Nazis unearthed something extraordinary in Antarctica, perhaps the ruins of an ancient civilization, an entrance to an underworld akin to Hollow Earth lore, or simply a hidden stronghold from which to rebuild power after their defeat in Europe. These accounts were further fueled by reports of missing German officers after 1945 and whispers of U-boats escaping to the southernmost seas. Mainstream historians, of course, generally reject these claims. They argue there is no credible evidence the Nazis ever established bases in Antarctica. Instead, they interpret the New Schwabenland expedition as more symbolic a propaganda-driven endeavor to secure Germany's position on the global stage rather than a serious military outpost. Nevertheless, it is difficult to ignore how deeply the Nazi fascination with mysticism, from Thule to Atlantis, rendered Antarctica the perfect backdrop for conspiracy and vivid imagination. After 1945, the persistent silence surrounding New Schwabenland only intensified suspicions. If it was merely a routine expedition, why were so many documents pertaining to it still restricted? Why do stories of secret Nazi bases continue to resurface in numerous fringe books and accounts? And perhaps most provocatively, why, just a few years later, did the United States abruptly launch one of the largest military operations in Antarctic history, Operation High Jump? If the narrative of New Schwabenland remains shrouded in the mists of speculation, then merely a year after World War II concluded, the world witnessed a far more tangible and perplexing event. The United States initiated one of the largest military operations in history in Antarctica, Operation High Jump. The sheer magnitude of this deployment immediately raised a critical question. Why would a frozen, seemingly barren continent necessitate such an extensive military presence? Operation High Jump spanned from August 1946 to February 1947, under the command of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, one of America's most celebrated explorers. On paper, the stated objectives were straightforward: to train troops in extreme cold conditions, to test equipment in polar environments, and to conduct scientific research. However, a closer examination of its scale unequivocally indicated that more was transpiring than a simple military exercise. The operation involved nearly 4,700 personnel, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft, a force comparable to actual wartime campaigns. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and even submarines were included. It is challenging to accept that such a comprehensive deployment was solely for cold weather training. Some records also suggest the U.S. brought extensive aerial photography equipment with the ambitious goal of creating a comprehensive map of Antarctica. What further intensified the mystery was the timing. Originally planned to last 6 to 8 months, the operation was abruptly curtailed after less than 2. Official reports attributed this premature withdrawal to harsh weather and logistical difficulties, but for many, this explanation lacked conviction. Why would such a powerful, meticulously prepared military force suddenly decamp and retreat? This informational void was swiftly filled with speculative theories. One of the most pervasive theories asserts that the U.S. fleet had, in fact, been deployed to pursue a secret Nazi base believed to be hidden beneath the Antarctic ice, where remnants of the regime and German scientists might have sought refuge after the fall of Berlin. Some narratives escalated further, claiming the Americans encountered advanced technology, experimental weaponry, or even flying discs, compelling their withdrawal. The theory gained considerable traction due to peculiar remarks attributed to Admiral Byrd himself. Following the operation, he reportedly gave an interview to South American newspapers, in which he allegedly warned that America must prepare for the possibility of being attacked by flying objects that can travel from pole to pole at incredible speeds. While these precise words were never officially confirmed in documented reports, they became potent fuel for decades of speculation regarding what Byrd genuinely observed in Antarctica. Mainstream historians offer a considerably more pragmatic explanation. They contend that High Jump was an integral component of America's post-war assertion as a global superpower, aimed at securing the polar regions, testing its worldwide operational reach, and preparing for the impending Cold War. Detailed mapping of Antarctica possessed both scientific and strategic value, particularly as transpolar flight routes were being investigated. From this perspective, the early withdrawal simply reflected the brutal and unforgiving conditions of Antarctica, rather than a hidden engagement. Nonetheless, the lingering shadows of High Jump persist. Why dispatch such an enormous force for what was officially a scientific mission? Why do Byrd's alleged comments clash with official reports? And why did Antarctica, a place long considered inconsequential, suddenly become the target of one of the largest military expeditions of the post-war era? It was precisely these unresolved questions that transformed Operation High Jump into a critical link, connecting the Nazi Neuschwabenland legends with the subsequent political mysteries of Antarctica. And when Admiral Byrd emerged as the central figure, the words attributed to him, irrespective of their veracity, opened a new doorway toward a vast land beyond the pole, a place that seemed to suggest another world, unlike anything previously understood about our planet. According to South American newspapers in the post-war years, Admiral Byrd delivered an interview in 1947 wherein he reportedly cautioned that the United States must maintain vigilance against the potential for an attack by flying objects that can move from pole to pole at incredible speeds. This declaration immediately generated considerable public intrigue. Some publications even quoted him as stating there was a vast, lush land beyond the southern pole, untouched and unexplored. Subsequent researchers have questioned the authenticity of those printed reports, but by then, the attributed words had already been absorbed into the burgeoning corpus of Antarctic legend. Part of this mythos also derived from what is claimed to be Byrd's secret diary. According to this highly controversial account, Byrd allegedly documented extraordinary experiences during his polar flights, describing verdant valleys, unusual animals, and even making contact with beings more advanced than humans. In one frequently quoted passage, Byrd purportedly wrote that his aircraft was taken under control and flown into an ice-free land where he encountered the inhabitants of the inner Earth. Naturally, neither the US military nor academic historians have ever corroborated the diary's existence, dismissing it as a fabrication. Yet, for the public imagination, it became perceived as substantiation for the hollow Earth theory and Antarctica's hidden secrets. What renders this even more intriguing is that, even without the disputed documents, Byrd's distinguished career alone invites speculation. As one of the first aviators to conduct flights over both the North and South Poles, he personally witnessed uncharted regions with his own eyes. His expeditions documented photographs and observations of areas not entirely covered in ice, as well as anomalous weather phenomena. Perhaps it was these first-hand experiences that imbued his words with such a haunting quality, as they did not merely spring from fantasy, but from a man who had genuinely seen things few others could even conceive. Some modern researchers contend that Byrd was simply referring to unexplored coastal parts of Antarctica where ice had receded to reveal dry valleys, and that his warning about high-speed flying craft was merely a metaphor for emerging Cold War technology. However, his ambiguous phrasing, combined with sensational newspaper reports, granted his words a life of their own, transforming them into fuel for the idea of a secret world beneath the ice. We may never definitively ascertain Byrd's true intent, nor the extent to which the press exaggerated his statements, but it was precisely this ambiguity that positioned him as a kind of messenger for grand theories of the hollow Earth, of Agartha, and of lost civilizations concealed at the bottom of the world. Following Admiral Byrd's enigmatic pronouncements, Antarctica gradually transitioned from an era of audacious expeditions into an entirely new phase, the age of global politics and diplomacy. The clearest manifestation of this shift occurred in 1959 with the establishment of the Antarctic Treaty, a document many still consider one of the most remarkable international agreements of the 20th century. Throughout the 1,950 seconds, the world was engulfed in the most perilous years of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union clashed on virtually every front: nuclear weapons, space exploration, political influence. Yet, amidst this global standoff, something almost inconceivable transpired. Both superpowers agreed that Antarctica would belong to no single nation. On the 1st of December 1959, in Washington, D.C., 12 nations, including the U.S., the USSR, the UK, France, Japan, Australia, and Norway, signed the Antarctic Treaty. The treaty outlined several core principles. The entire continent would be utilized exclusively for peaceful purposes. All military activity was strictly prohibited. Scientific research was actively encouraged, and its findings were mandated to be openly shared. Nuclear tests and the disposal of radioactive waste were forbidden. Crucially, no country could make new territorial claims, and all existing claims were effectively frozen or set aside indefinitely. What rendered the treaty so extraordinary was the remarkable level of consensus achieved. In a world where territorial disputes almost invariably ignited conflict, Antarctica was suddenly removed from the geopolitical game. This prompted many observers to ponder, why would the superpowers willingly relinquish a continent twice the size of Australia, one that potentially harbored vast resources beneath its ice? Did they possess knowledge that the rest of the world did not? Some historians argue that the explanation is straightforward. No nation desired to commit significant financial and human resources to such a hostile, difficult-to-control land when the Cold War was already consuming so many assets. The treaty, from this perspective, was simply a pragmatic means to avoid opening yet another front in the global confrontation. However, for those who believe in deeper secrets, this explanation feels insufficient. They suggest the treaty was, in fact, a carefully constructed cover, a mechanism for world powers to keep Antarctica's hidden truths under wraps, whether those truths entailed ancient ruins, clandestine bases, or something far more enigmatic. Suspicion only deepened when individuals examined the treaty's stringent rules regarding access. Anyone seeking to explore, survey, or even conduct research on the continent required special permission. Extensive areas were designated off-limits under the rubric of environmental protection. Commercial flights were prohibited. Even scientists were restricted to operating within tightly controlled zones. For many, this level of restriction did not signify transparency. It appeared to be a deliberate act of control. From this perspective, conspiracy theories flourished. Some contended that the treaty was engineered to prevent the world from uncovering archaeological discoveries that could fundamentally rewrite history. Others believed its purpose was to conceal secret military bases, perhaps remnants of Nazi Germany, or perhaps new Cold War facilities constructed by the superpowers themselves. And, of course, there are those who claim the true objective was to block public access to evidence of UFOs or extraterrestrial life. Whatever the truth may be, one fact is undeniable. The Antarctic Treaty stands as one of the most successful diplomatic agreements in modern history. More than 60 years later, it remains in effect, and additional nations have acceded to it. In a world defined by pervasive conflict, Antarctica has become the sole place devoid of war, armies, or formal borders. Yet, it is precisely this absolute peace that keeps suspicions alive, the persistent feeling that what appears to be peace may, in fact, be a meticulously negotiated silence. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 officially designated the frozen continent as a land of peace, dedicated to science, free of military presence, and exempt from territorial disputes. However, careful study of maps and scrutiny of the fine print reveal an undeniable feature. Vast areas are marked as restricted zones, regions where access is either limited or explicitly forbidden. This naturally prompts a disquieting question. If Antarctica is genuinely nothing more than a peaceful scientific preserve, why are there no-go zones and blocked flight corridors? In practice, commercial flights over Antarctica are almost non-existent. International air routes consistently circumnavigate the continent, bending around South America, South Africa, or Australia, but never traversing directly across its interior. The official justification is aviation safety. Extreme cold, lack of emergency airports, and unstable communication systems. Nevertheless, many argue that contemporary aviation technology is more than capable of managing such challenges. Consequently, why do airlines continue to treat Antarctica as a blank space on the map? The restrictions extend beyond passenger flights. Even scientific activity is rigorously controlled. Satellite maps frequently display blurred areas, missing data, or zones that are simply not publicly accessible. Independent researchers have identified no-fly corridors drawn across the continent, areas where flights are prohibited from passing or landing. Officially, these are said to protect fragile ecosystems. However, for the public, such reasoning often only intensifies suspicion. Is this genuinely about environmental preservation, or about keeping secrets buried beneath the ice? The most prevalent theories contend that these restricted zones conceal elements the world is not intended to see. Nazi bases remaining from the war, ancient structures trapped beneath the glaciers, or even cutting-edge military experiments conducted by today's superpowers in direct contravention of the Antarctic Treaty itself. Adding further fuel to these theories are satellite images that occasionally appear online before being swiftly removed. Some purportedly show massive dark holes resembling cave entrances or geometric structures, with sharp edges that starkly contrast with the ice. To adherents of Hollow Earth or Agartha theories, these represent gateways to an underground world guarded by global powers through access prohibitions. To more pragmatic observers, the images still suggest that Antarctica may not be entirely empty, but could be concealing infrastructure or sensitive resources. The map of restricted zones becomes even more suspicious when juxtaposed with 20th century expeditions. Numerous teams were permitted to venture deep into the interior, only to be compelled to turn back near specific coordinates. A few scientists have even publicly disclosed that they were denied access and prevented from releasing data from sensitive regions. Such pervasive control leads people to question, is environmental preservation merely a cover story, while the true objective is to keep discoveries under wrap? In this sense, Antarctica resembles an unfinished puzzle. The visible pieces are sufficiently clear, but crucial sections are deliberately obscured. Each restricted zone, each blocked flight corridor, transforms into an empty space that ignites the imagination. It is these empty spaces that have given birth to innumerable theories, rendering Antarctica one of the most enigmatic and myth-laden places in modern history. When the Antarctic Treaty was signed, many presumed the frozen continent would embody absolute peace, serving as nothing more than a locale for climate research stations and tranquil scientific outposts. However, reality proved far more intricate. As the Cold War intensified, Antarctica emerged onto the world stage as a silent battleground, a theater of shadow conflicts no less tense than Berlin or Cuba. With its unique geography, positioned at Earth's southern pole, spanning a vast sheet of ice and lying near critical transpolar flight paths. Antarctica quickly became what both the United States and the Soviet Union recognized as prime ground for surveillance. In an era where nuclear war felt like an imminent possibility, the prospect of deploying radar or missile systems at the South Pole carried immense strategic significance. From this vantage point, a base could monitor aircraft and submarines across both the South Atlantic and the South Pacific. Ostensibly, the research stations concentrated on geology, climate, and biology. However, many observers suspected that beneath these outwardly modest scientific structures lay clandestine intelligence centers, intercepting radio signals, monitoring satellites, and even testing classified military technologies. Radar towers, satellite antennas, and fortified bunkers carved into the ice began to appear. Were these truly for meteorological data collection, or for something far more substantial? From the 1,960 seconds through the 1,980 seconds, Antarctica hosted a growing number of international research facilities. Yet, this cooperation often appeared more akin to camouflage. Reports circulated that the US had deployed sonar arrays beneath the ice to track Soviet submarines navigating the Southern Ocean. Concurrently, the Soviets were believed to have installed space monitoring equipment within their stations to capture signals from American satellites. To the public, images depicted cheerful scientists in pristine white parkas. However, beneath this surface, a shadow war of surveillance was unfolding. Part of the mystery stemmed from persistent accounts of underground bases. Rumors asserted that both superpowers had excavated vast subterranean complexes beneath the ice research laboratories, weapons depots, command centers. Explorers even described tunnels so immense that trucks could traverse them, hidden deep beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. While official sources never confirmed such claims, the existence of underground facilities like the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station demonstrated that large-scale sub-ice construction was indeed feasible. Adding to the suspicion were the no-fly zones that began to appear during this era. Officially, these zones were designated to protect fragile ecosystems, but curiously, many of these restricted areas overlapped with key research bases. To skeptics, this was no coincidence. These were the locations where secret military testing was purportedly occurring, in direct violation of the very treaty that proclaimed Antarctica a land of peace. By the 1,980 seconds, the arms race had reached a fever pitch. Laser technology, directed energy weapons, and even space defense initiatives, such as the infamous Star Wars program, were being explored. Some theories suggest that Antarctica, being isolated, silent, and easily concealed from public scrutiny, served as the ideal testing ground. If something went awry, the ice itself would effectively bury the evidence. In this manner, Cold War Antarctica was never merely a meteorological outpost. It was a hidden battlefield where scientific endeavor and military ambition converged, where the public perceived only the surface, while the deeper layers of ice concealed strategic games of power. The rigorous silence surrounding these bases, combined with the continent's stringent restrictions, transformed Antarctica into a colossal black box of modern history. Even as the Cold War subsided, that black box was never fully opened. The old secrets did not simply vanish, they became compounded by new ones. In today's world, Antarctica is no longer exclusively a narrative of politics and military strategy. It has become the stage for something more enigmatic. Mysterious streaks of light, unexplained signals emanating from the sky, and reports of UFOs from pilots and researchers. This marked the commencement of a new era of Antarctic mysteries, where the ice and the heavens appear to merge into a silent, perplexing spectacle. One of the most frequently recounted stories originates from pilots operating near the southern pole. Many reported observing lights that moved in ways no conventional aircraft could replicate, streaking across the sky at incredible velocities. Sometimes they appeared in formations, only to vanish instantaneously. These reports were rarely made public, but circulated quietly within military and research communities. For proponents of UFO phenomena, Antarctica became the ultimate hidden stage for otherworldly activity. Even research stations have logged strange occurrences. Scientists at the Amundsen-Scott base described brilliant halos extending across the sky for hours, without any discernible natural explanation. Blue or silvery white beams occasionally appeared, distinct from the normal auroras one might expect. Some reports even mentioned peculiar sounds accompanying the lights, a low hum that seemed to resonate from the sky itself. These accounts almost never reached the public, and when they did, they were promptly dismissed as unidentified atmospheric phenomena. One of the most controversial incidents transpired in 1965 when a group of Argentine pilots claimed they encountered bizarre flying objects near Antarctica. They described orange lights racing at impossible speeds before ascending vertically into the atmosphere and disappearing. The story was picked up by South American newspapers, and to this day, it remains one of Antarctica's most famous UFO dossiers. What made these reports more difficult to dismiss was the very nature of Antarctica itself. This is not a densely populated area with random eyewitnesses who might misinterpret observations. Every flight, every observation originates from trained professionals, pilots, scientists, military officers. Yet, the silence surrounding these events remains deafening. If these individuals truly witnessed such phenomena, why were the reports never openly analyzed? Were they classified for national security reasons? Or did they encounter something truly beyond human comprehension? Naturally, not every explanation points to extraterrestrials. Some scientists contend that the lights could be reflections off ice or unusual polar atmospheric effects. However, these theories often fail to account for the described speeds, coordinated movements, and sudden disappearances documented by witnesses. Furthermore, in a region with virtually no civilian air traffic, where every flight is meticulously logged and cleared, from where did these unidentified craft originate? For conspiracy theorists, the answer lies closer to home. Antarctica, they argue, may serve as a testing ground for top-secret aviation technology. Some believe the major powers have experimented here with disc-shaped aircraft, possibly technology inspired by Nazi research from World War II. When pilots or scientists inadvertently glimpse these, the sightings are dismissed as strange lights, a convenient cover for truths not intended for revelation. If the skies over Antarctica once prompted wonder with strange lights and unexplained phenomena, then the ground and the ice beneath it hold another, quieter revolution, the transformation of Earth's climate. Antarctica has long stood as a symbol of permanence, an eternally frozen world. Yet, in just the past few decades, that ancient ice has begun to fracture, to melt, gradually revealing aspects humanity has never before witnessed. Scientists confirm that the rate of Antarctic ice melt is accelerating year by year. Massive icebergs, some the size of entire cities, detach and drift into the ocean. This process is not merely a warning signal for global sea levels. It is also a gateway into hidden valleys, buried sediments, and subterranean lakes sealed away for millions of years. Some dry valleys, once entombed beneath sheets of ice, are slowly emerging landscapes thought lost since the last ice age. What profoundly astonishes researchers is that with every ice retreat, Antarctica unveils another fragment of its astonishing past. Pollen, fossilized plants, and even insect remains have been discovered in the thawing layers, providing conclusive evidence that this continent was once a lush forest with mild climates and rich ecosystems. Other sediment layers contain the remains of marine creatures, indicating that Antarctica was not only forested, but also connected to vast oceans when it formed part of the supercontinent Gondwana. One of the most remarkable discoveries involves subglacial lakes, bodies of water sealed beneath thousands of meters of ice. Thanks to melting ice and ice-penetrating radar, we now know of hundreds of such lakes. The most famous is Lake Vostok, a world locked in darkness for millions of years, where scientists hope to discover life forms entirely unknown to us. As the ice continues to recede, reaching and studying these lakes becomes more feasible, sparking the imagination. If life exists down there, is it exclusively microbial, or could it be something more complex? Melting ice has also exposed unusual geological structures. Satellites have captured images of immense mountain ranges stretching for hundreds of kilometers beneath the ice. In some locations, perfectly straight lines, akin to artificial cuts, appear in the terrain. To some observers, these features appear less like natural geology and more like the remnants of an ancient civilization buried under ice and time. Mainstream science explains them as natural formations, the result of tectonic shifts. However, the geometric precision of certain shapes leaves many unconvinced that nature alone could carve them with such clarity. Climate change and melting ice, therefore, represent both a warning and an opportunity. A warning because they threaten global stability, but also an opportunity because they may finally grant humanity access to secrets sealed away for millions of years. Yet, the paradox is evident. The more Antarctica reveals, the more stringent the control over information becomes. Research data is often sequestered, with only fragments released to the public. Satellite images sometimes vanish or are blurred. It appears as though what is emerging from the ice consists not only of fossils and lakes, but also of elements too sensitive to share. This is why many believe the melting of Antarctica is not merely a natural process. It is akin to a curtain slowly being drawn back. Behind it may lie not only Earth's forgotten history, but truths that the world is not yet prepared to confront. The pertinent question is no longer just how rapidly the ice is melting, but also what we will discover when it is finally gone. However, not everything Antarctica reveals originates from nature. Alongside the secrets unlocked by time and climate, there are mysteries directly linked to human presence. Unexplained disappearances, expeditions that vanished into the ice, leaving behind unanswered questions. Unlike the early 19th century expeditions, where tragedy could be attributed to a lack of technology, the disappearances of the 20th and 21st centuries prompt more profound inquiries. With contemporary science and advanced equipment, why do individuals continue to vanish without a trace? One of the most discussed cases involves aircraft accidents. During the 1,960 seconds and 1,970 seconds, both military and civilian pilots reported peculiar incidents while flying near Antarctica. Some flights purportedly disappeared from radar in mere seconds, never to be heard from again. Wreckage was never recovered, even after extensive search operations involving entire fleets. Severe weather, blizzards, violent winds, and fractured ice fields could account for much of this. However, some reports describe sudden, inexplicable interference in communications, as if an invisible force severed every signal. For many, this sounded less like meteorological phenomena and more like electromagnetic anomalies, or even the possibility of hidden bases causing interference. The disappearances were not limited to pilots. Ground expeditions have their own chilling narratives. In one instance, a team was recorded departing a research station to survey a stretch of ice. Days elapsed without their return. When rescue crews arrived, they found only fragments, partially erected tents, abandoned tools, and long drag marks in the snow, suggesting the team fled in panic. The official record listed them as missing under extreme conditions, but the details eerily resembled the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident in Russia's Ural Mountains, another mystery that has never been fully explained. Some cases were even darker. At certain research stations, scientists were said to have ventured out to check equipment and subsequently never returned. Some vanished mere hundreds of yards from the safety of their base. Helicopter searches yielded no results, as though they had been entirely consumed by the endless white expanse. Intriguingly, these incidents rarely garnered international headlines. When they did, reports were brief, investigations were quickly concluded, and the events soon faded from public memory. Official explanations often point to the inherent brutality of Antarctica itself: sudden storms, concealed ice crevasses, or lethal cold that can cause death within minutes. Yet, for those who believe in conspiracy, these disappearances feel less like natural occurrences and more like controlled information. In several instances, radar logs and communication records purportedly vanished concurrently with the victims. Some suggest these individuals stumbled upon something they were never meant to see, and that their disappearance was no accident. Antarctica, with its profound silence and capacity to conceal anything, becomes the ultimate stage where the impossible can transpire unseen. These disappearances only serve to deepen the continent's shadowy reputation. They leave us with the unsettling impression that some presence, whether visible or invisible, is perpetually there, guarding whatever lies buried beneath the ice. Stories of vanishings do not merely leave us unsettled. They compel a larger question. What is deemed so critical to conceal that human lives become the price? If these are simply natural accidents, why do reports and data so frequently disappear along with the victims? And if they are ordinary tragedies, why is there such an urgency to close the files? While the narratives of vanished explorers continue to cast their shadow across history, another truth is buried just as profoundly. Antarctica possesses an astonishing wealth of natural resources. Beneath its immense ice sheet, geologists have identified oil, natural gas, and rare minerals resources substantial enough to potentially reshape the global economy. Many argue that this concealed wealth may be the true reason Antarctica has always been so rigorously guarded. Geological studies from the 20th century indicated that Antarctica holds significant coal reserves formed when the continent was covered in lush forests under a much warmer climate. However, coal represents only the surface layer. As ground-penetrating radar and deep drilling technologies advanced, scientists began to uncover indications of oil and natural gas. Some estimates suggest that Antarctica's oil reserves could rival those of the Middle East, while its gas reserves could compete with those of Russia or Qatar. The resource potential does not end there. Antarctica is also believed to be rich in rare minerals: iron, copper, gold, uranium, and critically, rare earth elements, the fundamental components of modern technology. These metals are essential for batteries, smartphones, computers, and particularly for advanced military hardware. In today's high-tech era, control over these resources grants a significant strategic advantage. However, due to the immense scale and delicate nature of this hidden fortune, Antarctica was effectively safeguarded by the 1959 Antarctic Treaty and further reinforced by the Madrid Protocol in 1991, which prohibited resource exploitation for at least 50 years. Ostensibly, the rationale was to protect the fragile environment. Indeed, Antarctica's ecosystem is incredibly delicate, where even minor disturbances can leave lasting scars. Yet, through the lens of geopolitics, it is challenging to believe that the world's superpowers would simply forego such treasure solely for environmental altruism. Analysts frequently posit that the Antarctic Treaty was, in essence, a mechanism for freezing interests. Rather than precipitating a resource war, the superpowers agreed to a moratorium, preserving the status quo until the opportune moment. In the interim, they quietly conduct surveys, meticulously mapping the geology, locating oil fields, and identifying mineral deposits. When the moratorium eventually expires, the nation possessing the most comprehensive data will hold a decisive advantage. Clear examples emerged in the 1,970 seconds and 1,980 seconds when both the US and the Soviet Union undertook significant geological surveys. Under the guise of scientific research, they conducted deep drilling to collect sediment samples, enabling them to estimate resource potential. Most of these detailed reports were never made public, but leaks hinted at colossal figures. More recently, China has invested heavily in Antarctic research stations, deploying underground surveying technology with very similar objectives. This resource factor makes it difficult to perceive Antarctica as the pristine continent of peace it is often portrayed to be. Instead, it appears more akin to a colossal vault packed with treasure, securely locked, with every superpower holding a spare key, awaiting the opportune moment to use it. When the world inevitably faces a profound energy crisis, or when resource strategy becomes a matter of national survival, opening that vault may simply be a matter of time. It is at this juncture that conspiracy theories find renewed impetus. If Antarctica genuinely harbors such immense wealth, then perhaps the restricted zones, no-fly corridors, and stringent information control are not solely about protecting ancient secrets, but also about concealing critical geological data. Some even speculate that small-scale experimental extraction has already occurred in secret, with results kept confidential to avoid igniting international disputes. Resources, therefore, may constitute the most tangible piece of Antarctica's mystery. UFOs, hollow earth theories, and ancient legends reside in the hazy realm of imagination. But oil, gas, and minerals, these can be measured, quantified, and fiercely contended for. And they may very well be the most concrete reason why, for decades, Antarctica has remained sealed off, guarded like an unopened treasure chest. If the vast resources hidden beneath Antarctica's ice are sufficient to keep nations perpetually cautious yet undeniably engaged, then another enigma resides in the very individuals who choose to visit. Not ordinary tourists, nor even merely scientists, but powerful figures and global icons, politicians, religious leaders, and even astronauts. Each such visit invariably sparks a wave of questions. What could possibly draw them to this barren, frozen land, a place with no cities, no permanent residents, and, officially at least, nothing of extraordinary note to observe? One of the most widely discussed visits occurred in 2016, when then U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry made a surprise trip to Antarctica on the very day of the U.S. presidential election. The timing alone fueled intense speculation. Why would one of Washington's most influential figures travel to the Earth's remotest, most desolate corner at such a critical political juncture? The official explanation cited climate change, a desire to witness its impact firsthand. However, skeptics argued that numerous other locations presented far more urgent context for such an observation. The pervasive silence surrounding his itinerary and the fact that many details were never released have left Carey's trip shrouded in mystery. Years prior, Antarctica also welcomed another unexpected guest, Pope John Paul II. His presence on the White Continent was described as a symbolic gesture of peace, but like all symbols, it could be interpreted in various ways. Some suggested the Pope wished to experience Earth's untouched wilderness as living proof of divine creation. Others whispered that the visit was a subtle attempt to assert a spiritual claim in a land already dominated by political and scientific interests. From a theological perspective, Antarctica could be viewed as the ultimate symbol of purity, or perhaps a place linked to unrevealed theological secrets. Adding to the intrigue was Buzz Aldrin, the legendary astronaut and the second man to walk on the moon. Aldrin journeyed to Antarctica only to depart abruptly due to reported health issues. What made the trip even stranger was a cryptic message he posted and subsequently deleted. "We are all in danger. It is pure evil." No one definitively knows his precise meaning. However, for a man who had gazed upon Earth from space and stood on the lunar surface, those words carried a chilling weight. Did he encounter something in Antarctica that the rest of the world will never be told? The list does not end there. Over the years, numerous politicians, billionaires, and military leaders have undertaken sudden, secretive visits. Their schedules are often expedited, and their reasons rarely shared. Many believe these visits are related to inspecting classified discoveries, anything from colossal fossils to unusual geological formations beneath the ice. Others extend this further, suggesting that Antarctica now functions as a clandestine meeting venue for the global elite, a location sufficiently remote for discussions that the rest of the world must never overhear. What these powerful figures inadvertently reveal simply by their presence is that Antarctica is not empty, far from it. It appears to hold intricate layers of meaning, political, scientific, religious, and perhaps even something beyond human comprehension. The fundamental question is not merely what they observed there, but why they collectively opted for silence upon their return. And sometimes, silence communicates more powerfully than any explanation ever could. That silence has transformed Antarctica into a fertile ground for endless theories. Could remnants of a lost civilization lie beneath the ice? Or advanced technology buried so deeply that humanity is not prepared to confront it? Or, more simply, is it merely a repository of strategic resources, secrets that, if disclosed prematurely, might destabilize the global balance of power? Throughout Antarctica's history, one consistent theme has permeated its expeditions, scientific discoveries, and numerous enigmatic theories: the rigorous control of information. No other place on Earth is simultaneously celebrated as the common heritage of humankind, while being enveloped in such stringent layers of censorship. Every piece of data released, every map published, every satellite image made available, appears to have passed through an invisible filter. It is this pervasive control that has rendered Antarctica unique, a place where power and secrecy are inextricably intertwined. Since the signing of the Antarctic Treaty in the 1950 seconds, participating nations have publicly committed to dedicating the continent to peace and science. Yet, alongside that pledge, they constructed formidable legal barriers. All research and data are mandated to flow through official channels. No entity possesses the right to publish or investigate independently. Consequently, scientific endeavor in Antarctica has ceased to be solely about open knowledge and has instead become an instrument of diplomacy, where each fragment of information carries significant political weight. For the public, this control manifests in more subtle ways. Satellite photographs are frequently blurred in specific regions. Maps made available to the public generally detail only the most accessible areas, leaving extensive blank spaces where questions persist. Scientific reports are rarely released in their entirety. Instead, they selectively highlight safe findings for publication in journals. Raw radar scans or deep core drilling data, the very kind that could reveal what genuinely lies beneath the ice, almost never see the light of day. The deeper one investigates, the clearer it becomes that this is not merely about basic security. It is fundamentally about power. For whoever controls the information ultimately controls reality itself. When a major power declares that Antarctica contains nothing but ice and microbes, that narrative becomes the official truth, even if classified databases hold findings that convey a profoundly different story. The disjuncture between the truth we are told and the truth kept hidden is precisely where power flourishes. This is why Antarctica has always been fertile ground for conspiracy theories. The more that is concealed, the more vigorously imagination rushes in to fill the void. A blurred satellite image is not interpreted as a glitch, it is perceived as a secret base. An expedition that vanishes is not attributed to a snowstorm. It becomes evidence of external interference. Ironically, the very act of controlling information has only intensified the survival of these theories. Perhaps Antarctica stands as proof of a deeper paradox. Sometimes the real secret is not what exists, but the fact that we are not permitted to know. A single piece of censored data may be significant, but what truly matters is the message it conveys. There's something you're not meant to see, and it is that message, more than the hidden fact itself, that ignites curiosity, suspicion, and the boundless myths surrounding this land of ice. Power here is not solely about extracting resources or constructing bases. It resides in controlling the boundary between what is revealed and what is concealed. Antarctica, with its layers of ice further obscured by political machinations, has become an exemplary illustration of how power and secrecy are intertwined. This phenomenon is not merely a product of the 20th or 21st century. Looking back to ancient maps and myths, Antarctica has always been more imagined than explored. Perhaps that is its true essence, to exist in the tension between what is visible and what remains perpetually hidden. And that is why it continues to captivate us, compelling humanity to perpetually ask questions long after potential answers have been deliberately sealed away. If information control serves as the curtain obscuring Antarctica today, then behind that curtain lies a future that could erupt into conflict, the impending battle for energy. In a world increasingly ravenous for resources, where oil fields, gas reserves, and rare minerals have evolved into strategic bargaining chips, Antarctica, with its vast frozen wealth, cannot indefinitely remain untouched. Geological surveys from the 20th century already hinted that beneath layers of ice, kilometers thick, lie sediment records spanning hundreds of millions of years. These sediments are telltale indicators of coal, oil, and natural gas. Some unofficial estimates have even boldly compared Antarctica's potential reserves to those of the Middle East, a claim not entirely without foundation. As radar technology has advanced, now capable of peering deeper through the ice, the continent's subterranean resource map grows increasingly precise. The question is no longer whether these resources exist, but rather when and who will be the first to exploit them. For the present, the Antarctic Treaty and the Madrid Protocol have placed a moratorium on all exploitation. However, these agreements are inherently temporary. When the world confronts a full-blown energy crisis, when traditional oil fields deplete, the debate will not be whether to drill, but which nation gains the prerogative to drill first. A silent race is already underway, not with weapons, but with data and scientific advancement. Whoever possesses the most detailed maps of oil and gas reserves, and whoever perfects the technology to drill and transport in such extreme conditions, will dominate the game the moment the ban expires. This energy struggle extends far beyond oil and gas. Antarctica is believed to harbor rich deposits of rare minerals, cobalt, lithium, and rare earth elements, the fundamental building blocks of batteries, renewable energy technologies, and modern weaponry. In an age where green energy is lauded as a salvation, whoever controls these scarce materials will dictate the trajectory of global industry. The world can discuss solar, wind, and hydrogen power extensively, but every one of these technologies remains dependent on finite minerals. Antarctica could very well represent the last great untouched mine. This is why many caution that Antarctica could become the new Middle East, only far more perilous. Exploitation here would not merely risk geopolitical conflict. It could unleash an environmental catastrophe. Every drill hole, every pipeline, could disrupt the delicate balance of its ecosystem. And once the ice begins to collapse, the damage would not remain localized. It would propagate, impacting sea levels, global climate systems, and the survival of millions worldwide. Yet, this is precisely where Antarctica might become the front line where power and morality clash. Major powers could invoke global energy relief as justification for drilling. They might frame it as a solution to fuel shortages, food crises, or even climate change itself. Simultaneously, environmental organizations will vigorously oppose such actions, warning that exploiting Antarctica would be akin to opening Pandora's box, unleashing irreversible consequences. This is where the true weight of Antarctica becomes clear. It is not merely a remote continent. It could be the arena where humanity's future is decided. Once its resources become a prize, Antarctica will no longer be the continent of peace, but a global chessboard. The forthcoming energy war may not commence with bullets, but with treaties, with technology, and with the persuasive power of each side's narrative to the public. Whoever controls the narrative of extraction for the good of humanity will ultimately prevail. Thus, Antarctica is not only Earth's memory sealed in ancient ice, it may also represent Earth's future. The critical question is, when humanity finally unlocks that frozen vault, will we discover salvation, or will we trigger yet another cycle of ambition, conflict, and environmental devastation? If we conceive of Antarctica as a land perpetually cloaked in mystery, it is as if three distinct forces grasp the curtain tightly: science, the military, and religion. These three realms, seemingly disparate and at times even opposed, converge at the southernmost extremity of the planet. Each holds a part of the key, and together they form a formidable triangle of power that simultaneously protects and seals away Antarctica's deepest secrets. Science, at least superficially, serves as the illuminating force for this frozen continent. Research stations have been established, and thousands of scientists from across the globe take turns studying its climate, biology, and geology. However, scientific inquiry in Antarctica is not entirely unfettered. It is meticulously structured, allocated, and monitored through international treaties. Every discovery must be reported via official channels, and only fragments of information typically reach the public. Ground-penetrating radar data and core samples drilled deep beneath the ice rarely appear in their complete form. Science, rather than unequivocally opening doors to hidden truths, has evolved into a filter, selectively presenting humanity only what is deemed appropriate for observation. If science functions as a mask, then the military represents the unyielding steel beneath it. Since the Cold War, Antarctica has been under constant surveillance. Military bases disguised as research stations, restricted flight paths, and censored areas on maps all strongly suggest the quiet, pervasive presence of armed forces. Operations such as High Jump, along with persistent rumors of Nazi underground bases, reinforce the belief that Antarctica has consistently been on the strategic radar of the superpowers. Officially, international treaties prohibit the deployment of weapons here, but few genuinely believe the military has fully withdrawn from such a geographically crucial land, one that sits at the confluence of three oceans, directly beneath the intricate web of global surveillance satellites. The third vertex of the triangle, religion, may appear an unexpected influence, yet its impact is undeniable. From the Pope's symbolic visit to theological interpretations of Antarctica as the last pristine land, religion has significantly shaped public perception of this place. Some theologians view Antarctica as a symbol of cosmic beginnings or endings, where profound mysteries may be preserved. At times, the voice of faith has inadvertently helped legitimize the pervasive silence. When science and politics prove inadequate in explanation, myth and belief readily step in to fill the void. Thus, the triangle of science, military, and religion does more than simply coexist. It sustains itself through a reciprocal dynamic of support and restraint. Science provides the rational framework that renders control acceptable. The military ensures that the land remains firmly under observation, and religion cultivates a layer of mythos, transforming Antarctica not merely into a physical continent but also a spiritual emblem, seemingly beyond ordinary reach. Collectively, these three sharpened points do not simply maintain secrecy, they render secrecy durable, for the secret resides not in the hands of any single group, but in the quiet collaboration of multiple powers. Viewed through this triangle of power, Antarctica's hidden truths are not solely about oil reserves or subglacial lakes. What is truly concealed is the very power to shape human knowledge. Whoever can definitively define what Antarctica is, be it a land of ice, a vault of resources, or a mirror of the cosmos, holds the power to define how humanity perceives Earth itself. Throughout history, Antarctica has stood as a colossal mirror of ice, reflecting humanity's most profound obsessions. Since ancient times, when Greek and Chinese geographers first conceived of a terra australis incognita, an unknown southern land, this place was imbued with meanings far transcending mere geography. It embodied the conviction that Earth required balance, a symmetrical land in the south. It was a mythical realm where deities or enigmatic peoples might reside. Even before its actual discovery, Antarctica was already a potent symbol of the unknown, representing both humanity's relentless hunger for knowledge and its inherent apprehension of the blank spaces on the map. When the age of exploration commenced, Antarctica mirrored another powerful obsession: the ambition to conquer. The relentless race between Amundsen and Scott, the profound sacrifices made during Shackleton's expeditions, all served as testament to humankind's unyielding desire to assert its power against nature's most formidable face. Yet, those very tragedies also underscored our inherent fragility. Regardless of technological advancement, humans remain vulnerable against endless snow and bone-crushing winds. Antarctica whispered back with icy calm, reminding us that we were never the absolute masters of Earth. In the 20th century, as the shadow of global conflict spread, Antarctica reflected a different obsession: power and control. Covert military operations, restricted air zones, and rumors of hidden bases all transformed it into a strategic playing card. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 declared it a land for peace and science. Simultaneously, however, it rendered Antarctica an out-of-reach zone, a place where information was filtered and silence itself became a manifestation of power. Even at the farthest extremity of the Earth, humanity could not resist transforming the southern pole into a political chessboard, despite the fact that no single nation genuinely owned it. Today, Antarctica has become a mirror for a global apprehension: survival. As ice sheets fracture and sea levels rise, the world regards Antarctica not merely with curiosity, but with a growing sense of dread. Each collapsing glacier, each hidden river revealed beneath the ice, resonates like a warning bell. Antarctica no longer simply preserves the memory of Earth's past, it has become a countdown clock for humanity's future. Above all, Antarctica reflects the intrinsic limits of our knowledge. After centuries of study, we have merely scratched the surface. Beneath kilometers of ice lies an untouched world. Lakes sealed off for millions of years, microbes found nowhere else, geological structures that could fundamentally rewrite Earth's story. Every discovery invariably opens another question, as though Antarctica consistently remains one step ahead of human comprehension. However, Antarctica's secrets are not exclusively natural. They also reside in how we manage truth. Science illuminates a part of it and conceals another. The military guards and protects, but also restricts. Religion imbues it with meaning, but also legitimizes silence. This intricate triangle of power renders Antarctica a place where truth, belief, and authority are tightly interwoven, impossible to separate. Perhaps this is why Antarctica is more than a continent. It is the ultimate symbol of the unknowable on Earth. If any place remains that humanity cannot fully conquer, it is Antarctica, a land both proximate, charted on maps, and monitored by satellites, yet simultaneously distant, as unreachable as another planet. A land described with scientific precision, yet still enveloped in a fog of secrecy and myth. And perhaps what Antarctica ultimately teaches us is not what lies beneath the ice, but rather how we confront the unknown. It reminds us that humanity has its limitations, that not every secret is intended to be uncovered, and that sometimes silence itself holds profound value. Antarctica is not merely Earth's treasure chest, but also Earth's lesson, a lesson in humility, in boundaries, and in the inherent cost of ambition. As this journey concludes, definitive answers may remain elusive, yet perhaps that is precisely the point. The absence of answers is what renders Antarctica the ultimate mystery. It does not hand us truths, it presents us with questions. It does not fill the silence, it compels us to reflect. In a noisy world, Antarctica remains profoundly silent, and perhaps that silence is the most potent message it conveys to humanity. Antarctica, Earth's final secret, patiently awaits us not to conquer, but to listen, to reflect, and to accept that not everything belongs to humankind.